Hey, everybody. Welcome to the episode that I've been shy about making because it's personal and because whatever. I'm just shy about making it. But this is the process video on how I manifested my boyfriend. So it was a long time coming. This was definitely a big manifestation for me, but a lot of people have asked about how I did it, and I like to share process episodes, first of all, so you can see exactly how manifestation actually works, but also so that you can sort of use me as a role model so that you can see that manifestation is possible for you too. Because one of the keys of manifestation that I teach in my programs is that you need to find role models that basically show you that what you want is like humanly possible, and even more bonus points if you can like relate to their story, like the person, your role model's like story or experience. So hopefully I'll be able to do that for somebody here. If you don't know me, I'm Jackie, aka Hoodwinkler. I'm a manifestation expert. I teach you how to manifest in a really simple, grounded way that's not insane, and it's super applicable, and a lot of it's based in like common sense. So if you want to find out where you are getting tripped up in manifestation the most, you can go in the description and there's going to be a little quiz there, and it's going to tell you exactly where you're getting tripped up in manifestation the most. It takes a minute and a half to complete. And yeah, so let's dive into the process. So, when it comes to manifestation, the first place that you have to start is making sure that something is authentic to you. It's like what you actually want and not what you think that you should want because someone else told you that you should want that thing, or because you're manifesting something, but the root of what you're trying to get is actually something else. So, an example of what that would be is if you put on your manifestation list, or you're trying to manifest a lot of luxury, like nice cars and bags, because you think that that's what you want. But really, if you sort of dig down into why you want that, it's because you think that when you get those things, it's going to give you status or confidence. And that's an example of manifesting something inauthentically. It's like not actually what you want because you don't care about the luxury items. You're not passionate about Gucci and Lamborghinis. What you're actually passionate about is status and confidence. So that should be the focus of what you're trying to manifest instead of this like surface thing. So, long story short, for everything that you're manifesting, just make sure that you're asking, is this something that I actually want in its essence? So, I had to do that with, you know, a boyfriend and a partner. And that was pretty, well, okay. At first, it was definitely like, I want a partner to fill a void within me. And that's sort of how I manifested relationships for most of my life in the past, was me feeling lonely and misunderstood and maybe a little bit codependent, and just like manifesting basically partners for the wrong reasons and not because I actually wanted to truly get to know someone and truly be intimate and vulnerable with them and build something really sustainable and important. It was more of just like, how do I emotionally regulate? Can somebody else do this for me? Like, how do I fill the void? Which I think a lot of us do when it comes to partnerships. And so the very first thing that I did, I'll talk more about like my relationship history and how much that played into this manifestation, but the very first thing that I did was just make sure that I was like ready to authentically manifest a partnership, and what I was asking for when I'm asking for a boyfriend is actually what I want. Like, I'm actually ready to manifest a relationship, not just a person who's going to take all of my troubles away, but like genuinely welcoming a new human being into my life with open arms to get to know them and share something with them and build something with them. And it's not all about what I'm going to gain from it and like how it's going to help me, which is usually an indication specifically with relationships that you might be manifesting it. You might be manifesting something else like security or stability or your loneliness to go away, if you're sort of looking at partnership like, oh, well, once this happens, then my life is going to be great, and not like, I'm really excited to get to know someone new. So I made sure that it was authentic in that way. check, it was. Or I got to the point where it was. And then what I did afterward was I made a list of all of the traits that I would want in a partner. And I started making, like, a partner has been on my manifestation list since I started really actively manifesting, which was about 3 years ago, like consciously. And that was after a lifetime of relationships that were kind of unfulfilling, a lot of like serial monogamy, definitely codependency. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I made this list and it definitely changed over the years for sure. And throughout this process over the past like 3 years of making the list and dating and like trying it out, I was constantly moving through important lessons and changing beliefs that I needed to change in order to support the infrastructure of having a partnership like that. You know, if your like personal self-concept and your level of self-worth and the beliefs that you have about yourself and your worthiness and yourself in partnerships, and I could never do this, if that's all like completely in shambles, you're literally not ready to manifest a partnership. And of course you can work on these things and change them, but you're not ready to manifest that dream partnership because you don't have the infrastructure not only to attract that person who's like at that level of awesomeness that you are trying to be at, because you on a subconscious level don't think that you're there yet, but also you don't have the infrastructure like internally to support a relationship like that because you don't. You just got to work on it first. So I made my list, and again, it changed over the years, but I'll read it to you so you can see just how specific it is. You can get really specific, you guys. It doesn't have to be like, I want a relationship. Anyways, so under life partner, a lot of what I wrote on my list are things that I've struggled with in the past that, you know, I just wanted a different experience of. So when you make your list of like things that you might want in a partner, it's going to be good to figure out what you don't want or what you've experienced that you didn't like and turn that around. So to start off, one of mine is I have OCD, and the way that my mind works is that whenever I would date people, even if they were like nice people, I would constantly second guess if they were the right person for me. So I would like meet someone and kind of like them, but not know if they were the one, and then wonder if I was like pushing them away because of past trauma, and I just like didn't know if I actually liked them and I was pushing them away or if they weren't right for me. So the very first thing that I wrote on my list is his adoration and love feels so abundantly clear that I have no chance to second guess it. I feel so showered with love, attention, and gifts that it feels like a dead giveaway, always, not only sometimes. And I know deeply, fully in my heart, body, mind, and soul that this is the person that I want to be with long term. I do not overthink it, and I don't have to. I know right away. Like, that's what I wrote on my list. I also said that I don't want it to feel obsessive or distressing, and I don't want to feel the need to chase and pursue someone, that it gives me a soft, loving, and warm opportunity to grow into the best version of myself. I specified soft, loving, and warm because I've definitely had relationships that have helped me grow a lot that were not soft, loving, nor warm. But it definitely did help me. I wrote that I wanted princess and queen treatment. I don't get bored or get the ick. I feel fully respected as a woman. I feel beautiful, sexy, honored, empowered, and taken care of. My practices and routines stay firm while he's around, and I do not belittle myself in front of him, which was a pattern with me in the past. For our relationship, I wrote that I wanted it to feel fun, safe, sexy, best friends vibes, connected, inspiring, easy, lighthearted, complimentary, stable, loving, luxurious, abundant, unbreakable, unquestioning, open, loyal, longevity, and sibling-like. I have a Venus in Gemini. If you look into that, that's a thing. Same values, life path, and direction. This is interesting. I put that I wanted good synastry. I wanted him to bring out the golden sun in me and not the wounded bird. That's like a personal kind of note. I said we read to each other out loud. We have the same sense of humor. We have amazing sexual chemistry, enough interest in common to satisfy me. We don't have to like everything that's the same, but enough. Open-minded, mature, and we have electric chemistry. And then I have what I wanted him to be like. So I have what I want to feel, what I want us and the relationship to feel like, and then what I want him to be like. So, first of all, I just wanted him to be sexy. It's the first thing that I wrote. I wanted him to feel like a song. So, sorry, I just want to stop. You can be this specific. So I wanted him to feel like the song Opaline by Dishwalla. I just love that song, and I think it's like, if a man were that song, that's like what I would want him to feel like. So anyways, his routines complement mine. I wrote that I wanted him to be written by women. Kind of looks like Roy from The Fall, not in like his features really, but like, I don't know how to describe this. I'm like getting all like shy. My favorite movie is The Fall by Tarsem Singh. There's a character in it. His name's Roy. He's the main character. I like that his face looks like he was carved out of marble or something. So that's what I wrote. Kind of like Roy from The Fall. Roy from The Fall, excuse me. Carved out of marble, but obviously happy and healthy because Roy is suicidal in the movie. So we don't want that. Has some form of swag, playful, spiritual, believes in God and talks to God, likes the same art and music and as me, artistic, inspiring. I think he's cool and I look up to him. Knows the dark but chose the light. This is really important to me because I have had an enormous amount of like trauma and like rough shit in my life, and I don't think that I would ever relate to someone who like just had never experienced that and had a hunky-dory life. So I wanted someone who was like me, where they went through a lot of shit, but they chose to improve themselves and come out the other end. And that was really important. I wanted him to be balanced, very funny. He takes excellent care of himself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I wanted him to be a real man. I wanted him to be on board with the Jackie Winkler show, which is me and my ideas. Upholds and protects not only me, but my vision. Always texts back within 12 hours. Asks questions. He's open-minded, eye contact, monogamous, can travel and work remote. I wanted him to pay for everything, not because I'm entitled to that, but just because I think that's sweet and that makes me feel loved. That's like a love language for me, and I just like wanted to throw that in there. I don't feel entitled to people paying for me, and I can absolutely pay for anything that I want myself, which is important. If you're someone who wants like princess treatment, could you give yourself the same princess treatment? And if you can't, start there. Okay, this is interesting. I wrote down every zodiac sign I didn't want him to be, which I'm not going to tell you what they are. Equal or greater to me in ambition, in every way, like ambition, attractiveness, like everything. Deep, wants a family, wants a luxurious, expanded, grounded family life. Mature, a good dance partner, gives me massages, divine masculine, kingly, strong provider, protector, pursuer, kind, eager to please, gift giver, thoughtful, gives me flowers weekly, healthy in every way, playful, humor, everything. So I had this list. Obviously this is extensive because I just took 5 minutes to say everything. And then the fun begins. So when I made this list initially, it was definitely a little bit different because the first list that I made was like after I broke up with my ex-partner like 3 years ago. And that was when belief-wise, because once we have the list, then we start working on beliefs. Like, what do we actually believe about ourselves that aligns with what I'm asking for or doesn't align? So when I first made this list, we're starting off at square one. And I had no beliefs that would have supported a relationship like this. Basically, I thought that I was like unlovable, unworthy of anything. I didn't think that it was like fair for me to be treated like a princess for whatever reason. I just thought that that was like unfair. I kind of thought that that was like a weird, outdated dynamic, that everything should be like super equal. I was also terrified of men. I thought that all men were basically like animals that like only thought with their you know what, and just like weren't as smart as women, and if women ruled the world everything would be better. I thought that no one that was actually healthy would ever love or understand me because of my childhood and the trauma that I've been through. I basically was like, everyone will leave me eventually because like I suck and I'm not good enough, because that's just what I learned in childhood. I also had a huge pattern of when I was dating people, I would feel this like obsession with making it work, because a part of me thought that anybody who entered my life was just the best that I was gonna get. And so I had to really, really cling to that, because it was sort of like, I can't believe that anybody would pick me. This is the best that I'm gonna get, so let me cling on to them, even if they were horrific. I also had tended to attract lots of people who were sort of like darker and just like stuck in their trauma. I mean, energetically, like stuck in their trauma, like just sort of like Scorpio, like occult vibes, but in like the worst way. Like I had a long history of dating, or like casually dating or seriously dating people who were addicted to heroin or opiates. That was a big one for me for all through high school and college and after college. People who were suicidal, people who were bipolar and had very extreme emotions, very manipulative, like emotionally manipulative people. So I had like many either short-term or long-term relationships of people who like basically didn't know how to treat me, took me for granted, ended up stalking me. That was like has happened twice, legally speaking. Just not good, just not good relationships. So I just had a belief that like that's what I was always going to attract, basically. And the reason why I attracted that was because I wasn't a good person, and because of my childhood, all of those people either reminded me of my mom or my dad in personality or in our dynamic, where I was constantly trying to save one of them and being like emotionally or save them, sorry, and being like emotionally manipulated by them at the same time, which was my childhood. Um I'll say that's the bad part of my childhood, actually. It wasn't all bad. But yeah. So I had all of these gunky, icky beliefs. I also had kind of like surface level beliefs, like that you can't have a goofy or friendly, like best friend vibe relationship and have it be sexy and have there be a lot of chemistry at the same time. It was sort of like one or the other, but not both. And I just didn't think that I could ever be attracted to anyone who was good for me. And I've talked with a lot of clients, and a lot of people say this, that they're like, I'm just not attracted to the good guy. I'm just not attracted to, like the guys who show interest in me. Like, I'm not attracted to them. So these were all of these beliefs that I was dealing with at square one. And I was like, how do I get over them? So I started reprogramming them, and the process that I use is what I teach in one-on-one coaching. It's also what I teach in the Co-Creation Clubhouse, which is my monthly membership, like online. It's basically like a whole library of exactly how to manifest. It's like a course that you walk through. And in that, I use these hypnosis things that I make, that I literally like record, called mind shifts. So a lot of the reprogramming of these beliefs was through me doing these mind shifts, where I get in touch with all of these root beliefs, and then I figure out where I learned them and how I learned them when I was a kid, and then I like reprogram them and learn to support my inner child. And it's like a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it, but I reprogrammed a lot of these beliefs. So I was using the mind shifts, and then I started to find all of the places where I needed to convince myself even more that what I wanted was possible. So I mentioned this at the beginning, but one of the keys of manifestation is finding role models that are specific to your limiting beliefs and your manifestation. So I started finding role models, and I was like, okay, where can I find women that have been through it and like haven't had good families, or people who haven't had good families and they're now in long-lasting healthy relationships. So immediately I thought of not Scooby and Shaggy, Fred and Daphne from the live action Scooby-Doo. I'm pretty sure, met on set, and they've been together ever since. And Fred's dad committed suicide, and my dad also committed suicide. So that was a huge role model for me, because I had this belief that like anybody who had experienced what I'd experienced could never be in a healthy relationship, because that's like so traumatic. Also found Leighton Meester. She's the girl who played Blair in Gossip Girls. She has been with her husband for a really long time. They have a happy, healthy family. And she actually, I'm pretty sure, was born in prison. Like, her mom was in prison when she gave birth to her, and then she was in foster care for a lot of her life. So, super traumatic childhood, probably, we can assume. And she just, like, dealt with it and now has a happy relationship of her own. And then I found people's whose relationships I just kind of admired. So I have my two good friends, Kasha and Mikey, in real life. They have a really good, like, fun, sexy best friend vibe relationship. I also had like Alanis Morissette and Soul Eye. That was a good couple that really like opened my mind because she's definitely been through it and she's been married like happily for a while. Just kind of like I thought of all the neighbors that I admired their relationships growing up. My friends Maddie and Henry, they've been together for a long time. I love their vibe. For the goofy, sexy thing, I had Arthur Bach and Linda from the movie Arthur, the 80s movie. I like love their vibe. Fleabag and the Priest, like if they stayed together. Nara Smith and Lucky, Pookie and Jet. Like I really was like thinking of all of these examples. And then when I was scrolling on Instagram, if I saw couples that I liked their vibe in a video, I would instantly save it to a group that I have, like a saved folder in Instagram called Husband Vision Board. And so I was like going through and just saving all of this shit. So as I'm doing that, I'm basically showing my mind that what I want is actually possible. Look at all of these real life examples. These are real human beings. Or they're fictional characters, but like I can really get into their story and like feel like it might be possible, you know? And I'm doing these hypnoses and I'm like working through these beliefs in therapy about like my worthiness. So what happens when you start manifesting something is then the universe is going to start, especially after you state your intentions and make a very long list like I did, the universe starts giving you tests. And I would describe a lot of my past relationships because ultimately I've always been dating to marry. Like I've always been dating for a life partner. I didn't really ever just date to date. I would describe a lot of my past relationships as tests. And tests are what when the universe basically says, are you sure that you want to break out of like this limiting pattern? Or would you rather just stay there? It's basically the universe making sure that you actually want what you say that you want. And it's giving you an opportunity to like jump into a new timeline by acting in alignment with the version of you that has what you want to manifest. So like my ex was a huge test. Basically every single day of our relationship was a test. It was just like rough. Just someone like testing every level of my self-worth. And then after breaking up with him, like I started dating a couple months after. And as I was dating, like I was encountering tests. And when you pass tests, the people that you date or like the tests that you encounter get better and better. So it's like almost like harder and harder to say no to them, but the whole goal is that you're sticking to your list and you like never ever settle for anything less than your list. So like after I broke up with my ex, I started dating someone kind of briefly who I thought was so cool. Like he was a cool dude and we looked amazing together. Like I remember we would go out and everyone was like, are you guys in a rock band? Like they were just like, are you married? You look great together. And that like really boosted my ego in a lot of ways, but we were super incompatible, like emotionally and in every other way. Like I just like honestly didn't like him at all. And I don't think he liked me. But there was still that desperate belief that came up of like, what if this is the best I'm going to get? And there are some aspects of it that are good. So like, let me try to make it work, even though clearly it's like, this is not meant to be. So, eventually I passed that test, and as I'm passing these tests and sort of like moving on and just like saying no, a lot of passing tests is like saying no, like no thank you, no thank you. My life starts to just get better and better in every way. Like I remember he basically texted me to get back together or like some weird reparation thing after I broke up with him, and like as I texted him like really nicely, thank you but no thank you, because like I just don't think that this relationship was good and I don't really want to continue. as I hit send, I remember getting a feeling of like, oh, I just passed the test and something's happening. And then I checked my phone and all of my videos were blowing up on TikTok. So tests, when you pass them, it doesn't just affect what you're trying to manifest. It affects everything else in your life because it's like an up-leveling of your self-worth in every other way. And tests also are going to appear in ways that might not look like it's related to dating, but it is. So one of those for me was I was really addicted to travel because I was kind of afraid of actually forming long-term connections. And what is a romantic relationship? A long-term connection. So I was traveling a lot because I wouldn't really have to get attached to any place or anyone in those places because I was always moving, away. And so that was one of the tests that I had to pass as well, was me really getting to a point where I was like, I'm so tired of not having connection with anybody, so I'm just going to need to pass this test and actually, like, test meaning every time that I had the urge to run away again, I have to say no. No, thank you for this opportunity to run away again, source, but I'm choosing something else. I'm choosing long-term connection, and I'm settling down. So that was a test I had to pass, and I settled down in one place. And another test I had to pass was this like sort of dynamic that I had that no one would ever understand me. So I always like dressed different than everyone else and like separated myself aesthetically from everybody else. That was like a weird elitist one. And I had to pass that test and just like understand that I wasn't any different than anybody else, and any part of me that thought that I was like any higher or mightier than anybody else was just a part of me that was scared of connecting with people. Which I never thought like emotionally, but I did think aesthetically. It's kind of like whatever. It's like an Enneagram 4 thing. And then when I was abroad, I dated someone pretty briefly who was a lot of things on my list. He was like kind of my type physically, I guess. Like we connected in a lot of the ways with chemistry, definitely ambitious, but that like emotional depth and connection was missing, and I felt like very missing. And I felt like down the line it might have turned into something that was just sort of like really flat and probably stable and extremely boring, and we just like probably wouldn't have anything in common because we just didn't connect in the way that I had written on my list. It was in a lot of the other ways, and it wasn't like really bad, and it wasn't abusive or anything that I'd experienced before. Just didn't mesh well. Okay, so I'm passing these tests, and then this is where it starts picking up. This is where the magic starts picking up. Then I start having this feeling like something's gonna come in. I start having a feeling like my partner is knocking on the door, and I knew that he was gonna be in the state that I ended up moving to. I just like felt pulled to that state for my own reasons, but also because I knew that a partner was waiting there. So when I'm in Costa Rica, I meet someone, I'm like at a music festival, and I meet someone and I really like him immediately. I actually saw him the year prior and just noticed him because I was at the same music festival a year before, and I noticed him and I was just like, okay, there's like a pull. He's really interesting looking. It's a vibe. So we spend the week together and we're just dancing and having fun, whatever. We definitely have a vibe. And then afterwards we start texting. We have everything in common. He is everything on this list. He's like checking off all of the boxes for the most part. He does live in that state, which I thought was really interesting. He has stuff in common with me that I just never thought that I would have in common with anybody. So we decide to date, like kind of briefly, just like get to know each other outside of the festival. So he comes to visit me, and I'm having a great time. Like it's a really, really good time. And then he starts communicating in a way that reminds me very, very, very much of that like manipulative vibe that I got from my ex and like exes. So it's basically like everything that I think that I want ish, plus this like huge red flag that is exactly the same trigger as what I used to fall for over and over and over again. And when I was interacting with him in that way, I was able to just sort of like hold space for it and like not take it personally, but also be like, no. And then I just told him like, look, it was great. It was fun. I'm not interested at all. Like next. He didn't take it well at all. And we didn't like date. It was like we went out for like a week. So nothing crazy. but I just felt like that was the final exam. I just knew this was the final test. It was so close, and it was tempting because there were just a lot of synchronicities and things in common, but the self-worth, my self-worth wasn't there. I wouldn't have been supported in that. Like, I wasn't heard, I wasn't listened to. It was manipulative. It was the same sticky pattern as always. So it was a no. And then I reached a point after that of total giving up. I remember it was a full moon, and I was like sitting out under the full moon in the back of my truck, and I just burst into tears, and I was like, God, I would be fine being single for the rest of my life. Like, I'm genuinely really happy with myself. But like, if there's anything I'm not seeing, just give it to me. Like, if you're ready to bring someone in my life and I haven't been able to make the right decisions for myself, decide for me. Like, bring someone into my life for me. But at the same time, I don't give a fuck if that's not what's in the cards for me. And that's the point in manifestation that you have to reach, is when you're like, okay, I know what I want, but like, here you go, God. Like, just take it. I'm perfectly in my worth and I'm perfectly happy without this thing. Like, I release it to you, basically. Okay, so then a week later, maybe even a couple days later, I am in town. I live in a small town, and I'm in town, and I'm talking on the phone with my best friend, and this guy passes me, and I literally remember being like, Max is my best friend. I was like, Max, the most beautiful guy just walked past me, and I think I said he looks like the sun. He looks like good. Um, and we looked at each other and we made eye contact, and then he walked away like up the hill, and I was like, damn, he's beautiful. Like, I was really geeking out. And then I like went in the store to get a coffee or something, and then I walked to a different cafe to like get another drink, and he was there, and he was sitting at the counter, and I sat down to work, and I was like, oh my God, here he is. And I wrote down my name and number to give to him, but I was so scared. Like, every fiber of my being was like, oh, I'm so scared, I just can't do it. Um, so I wrote it down, and he went to the bathroom, and I remember I was going to put the piece of paper on his drink because I didn't want to, I knew he knew that it was me because we'd been sort of looking at each other and making eyes. And I also had this belief that I didn't want to approach a man, because if I approached a man, that I wouldn't be in my feminine, which is dumb. Don't buy into that. So I wanted to put my number on his cup, and I didn't. And he left, and I was so pissed at myself. I literally remember praying to God in this cafe, and I was like, God, if that man's supposed to be in my life, like, bring him back, and I swear on my life then that I will give him my number next time. And actually, the praying on the moon thing happened after this, because I remember it triggered this whole thing of me being like, how am I so scared of human connection that I can't walk up to someone and just give them my number? Like, I can't even like face that rejection, and it just triggered this whole thing. And that's when I prayed on the moon, and I was like, please God, I don't even give a fuck anymore. Anyways, and then about a month later, I was still kind of casually dating, and it was like not really going anywhere. And then a month later, I was going into the store to buy myself a dress, and I went to that cafe again, and he was there on the porch, and I was like, okay, I made a promise to God, so now I have to take the aligned action and actually give him my number, even if it scares me. So I went in to get a drink, and I remember the lady was taking too long at the counter, and I was like spiraling. I was like, what if I go out on the porch and he's already gone, and then like I missed my shot and I broke my promise to God? Anyways, so I walked out with my drink, and he was gone, and I was like, fuck, I just missed my shot. And then I saw him up the street, and then he saw me, and we both literally started walking towards each other like this, and we met right in the middle of the street, and I was like, I was coming to give you my number, and he was like, I was coming to ask for your number. And I just instantly felt so connected to him, like right away. Spoiler alert, we've been dating ever since, and I'm like madly in love with him, and he's madly in love with me, and I just like love him so much. He's literally everything on my list and more. He's way more than a list could ever encapsulate. But some of the interesting notables about like how I felt when he met was, I remember he looked like the sun. Like, he looked so bright and shiny almost, like just like beautiful. And I remember when he told me his name, this is really interesting, and this is like how I know we're all connected, and I've definitely known him in another life. When he told me his name, it felt wrong. It's almost like if your best friend told you that their name was something other than what it was. It was like I had known him my whole life and he was telling me his name. And when I heard it, I was like, that can't be right because I've known you as another name before. That's exactly how it felt when we first met. And then on our first date, that's when the synchronicities fucking started hitting, you guys. Okay, so we're on the first date. Not only am I just like having fun, I get in the car with him because we're going to go to the river. First of all, he looks amazing. We get in the car together, and he has break beats on, which is like, not many people listen to break beats, but I love break beats. And I was like, wait, you listen to break beats? And he was like, yeah, we're going to get along just fine. And then he drives me to the river. We're talking at the river. We're like really connecting. The conversation is super easy, which is oftentimes, surprisingly, because I don't shut the fuck up, hard for me with new people. The conversation is flowing super easily. And then I bring up randomly a super niche internet persona that I used to be obsessed with. And I'm like, do you know this guy? And he was like, yeah, I do. Why do you ask? And I was like, well, I just like made a joke that he made. And basically we find out that the super niche internet persona that I used to love, one of my best friends works for this internet persona. So I'm like kind of looped into that community in a weird way. He used to work for that internet persona and knows my best friend who lives across the country. So like first insane synchronicity. Okay, next thing. I love vintage stuff. Like I'm such a vintage girl. And I make a lot of like kind of boomer jokes that nobody gets. And I know a lot of references because they're like old that not a lot of people understand now. So halfway through our date, he does a Clark Gable impression, which is like an old actor. And that was when I was like, fuck, I'm literally so in love with him. Like he's so funny. And I just like knew that it was getting weird. Okay, then later on our date, he asks me if he can read to me, which is specifically on my list. He's like, can I read to you? He feels exactly like the song Opaline. Like it's his perfect entire vibe. He literally looks like Roy from The Fall. Like his facial features are kind of similar. We get into like his past and everything. He totally like knows the dark but chose the light. We've been through a lot of the same type of things and he's super healthy. He like totally transformed his life through boxing and like personal empowerment and gaining skills and just like treating himself well. Another part of dissolving my beliefs, actually, which I forgot to mention, was reading this book called The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong, and this definitely changed my mind about men in general. And as we're on our first date, he's quoting the book. He's saying things like that are word for word out of the book that the men say in the book, because the book is basically about masculine and feminine energy and how to like honor the spirit of a man. And he's saying things word for word out of the book to the point where I ask him, have you ever read The Queen's Code? He's like, no, I've never heard of it. So like immediately it's feeling manifestation-y. Another thing that was absolutely crazy was I wanted Fleabag and the Priest vibes if they stayed together. And at one point, if anybody who's seen Fleabag like will know what I'm talking about. At one point I looked away from him and he made a joke, "Where did you go just now?" Which is exactly what the fucking priest says to Fleabag in the show. And I asked him, like, have you seen Fleabag? And he was like, no. So I'm just, like, tripping out. And he's just, like, great. Like, immediately I know that he's going to be important to me. I know that this is the vibe. I feel like, I don't want to speak too soon because we're, like, not married or anything. But I just, like, feel like it's it. There's no doubt in my mind that this is it. Like, I'm certain. And since then, you guys, it's just been like literally amazing. The more that I get to know this person in my life, the more I grow to just like love and care for him. The way that not only is he everything on my list, I just really want to make this clear, like it's just so above and beyond to get to know someone who's such an upstanding individual, who has like such clear, like aligned wonderful values and acts accordingly. It's such a privilege for me to be able to like know this man and just witness him being himself, because he's so inspiring to me in the way that he carries himself and his like inner strength and his stability and his drive is like so empowering. It's just been like literally like amazing getting to know him in every way. And incredible receiving from him and receiving all of the incredible things that he does for me. Like I get flowers every week, which was on my list. He brushes my hair for me. He treats me like a precious, precious, beautiful thing. And I just feel so loved and cared for. And he's just like, it's just amazing. It's also brought up definitely like a whole new layer of things that I need to grow into and work through and like work on, such as my willingness to receive, because receiving is something that's kind of new for me, and just trusting that I am 100% worthy and like something's not going to go away. Like I definitely know that I'm worthy of having this, but there's still some stuff coming up around like, oh, well, can I keep it? And life is so fragile, and what if something happens, like what if the other shoe, like when's the other shoe going to drop type of thing, like what's the catch? So just like working through all of that stuff too. So it's definitely not been without, like, it's not, oh, my life's like a fairy tale now, but it is exactly what I asked for in every single way. And I'm incredibly grateful just even for this experience and this opportunity. So lastly, what I want to say is how this feels different than all of the other times, because I think a lot of times people get like tripped up mentally when they meet someone, kind of like I used to, of, oh, what if I don't know if this person is right for me, or I'm like pushing them away, and how can I actually tell if this is someone that I want to be with? So the first thing is you need to see who is the version of, it's less about them, who are you when you're with them. And this is really cool because it takes all of the pros and cons lists. You can quit doing them. It takes all of the pressure off of them being a certain way or what they're doing or who they are, and it puts all of that focus on you. How do you feel when you're around this person? Do you like yourself? Do you like this version of yourself? Are they nurturing qualities and traits within you that you feel excited about? And does it feel like one of your favorite versions of yourself, Like you can think about it this way. The version of yourself that you are when you're around maybe a parent that is challenging is different than the version of yourself that you are when you're around your best friend. And one of them you might like a little more. So do you like the version of yourself you are when you're with them? And that was a definite yes. The other thing that it felt different was that desperation of I need this to work completely dissolved the minute that I met him. It was instantly, I really want this to work, but if it doesn't, that's okay. And this is such a wonderful person that even if it doesn't work, I'm grateful for every single second that I get to know him and spend time with him. The other thing that it felt different was instantly, this is embarrassing, but I want a family, and instantly my entire algorithm was wedding and baby content, 100% of it. And I just felt like that was a timeline that I locked into that is wanting to come through, but I'm not ready for that just right now. The other thing, how it felt different, was I just felt really taken care of and safe in every way. Another thing was usually when I would be texting someone, oh yeah, we never texted. It was not a text relationship. We weren't texting all day, which I used to do with mad people. It was just sort of like, we didn't want to get to know each other through text. We wanted to get to know each other in person, and he made that happen. Like consistently, you know what I mean? Texting didn't feel good. It was like, and we still never text, like ever. It's if we have something to say to each other, we call each other or we see each other in person. And if we were texting, if I just had some info to tell him and he didn't text me back, in the past, the amount of like every hour that went by that I wasn't responded to, I would start to get like annoyed and pissed off at the other person. Like I would be like, he's probably out doing whatever he wants. Like I would just get annoyed. For some reason when I met B, like that completely disappeared. I just didn't care. I was 100% certain that if he wasn't texting me, it was because he was busy doing something for himself, and he would text me when he got a chance because he's a busy guy and he also loves me and is really interested in me, and that was clear from the beginning. So there was no question of if him not texting me was him not liking me. I also just like instantly knew that I wanted to be with him forever and would be happy because he's lovely. It's like when you know, I just knew. And it was extremely easy, and it has been extremely easy. Like if we like we don't fight, but if we like get into disagreements, it's like we just talk about it and we smooth it over. Hanging out is extremely easy. The hours fly by when we're together. There's no awkwardness literally at all. Even if it's like uncomfortable, sometimes it's not awkward. It's still like we can talk about it and it's gonna be okay. And lastly, here's a tip. if you get psyched out easily when you're dating someone, because I definitely got psyched out sometimes where I was like, what am I doing? Like, why do I like this person so much? And like, what if they don't like me? Think about them like your friend. Go into it being like, remember that this is your friend. You're just building a friendship with someone first, because that's the most important part, is if you like them as a person and not if they're the one, you know? It's just, do you like spending time with them? Are they a good friend? Because friendship should be the basis, and everything else that comes after is everything else that comes after. So, you guys, that's how I manifested my boyfriend. And he's lovely and amazing. And I'll show you a picture of him so that you can just know that I wasn't lying the whole time and making it up. There's B. That's my boyfriend. I can't even look at him. It makes me want to cry. He's so great. Here's him eating a s'more. Okay, you guys. I'm so grateful. I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm also about to start my period. That's why I'm crying. I'm going to go get my nails done. It was great seeing you. Gonna eat these microdoses, and bye.